Hello and good afternoon, Stephen, our special guest. This is the information session, just speaking briefly about this End-of-Life Doula Certificate Program with Rhodes Wellness College. And Stephen, what Stephen's going to be teaching you in the program, in his portion of the program. So, Stephen, if you don't mind, could you introduce yourself about who you are and maybe your history, and your impact here with our program, and then we'll hear a little bit more from you in a moment about why this work is so important, and what potential students could learn from you in the program.
Awesome. Well, my name is Stephen Garrett. I am an interfaith minister. My friends call me the Irreverend Reverend. I'm trained at Death Doula. I've taken many different Death Doula training programs. I've got a master's degree in education and training. I am absolutely dedicated to improving the state of the nation when it comes to dying, death, grief, and loss here in North America. And I'm very inspired to teach what I teach in this program, and was a little bit of a founding father of the doula program here at Rhodes Wellness College.
Wow. Incredible stuff. So, a lot of potential students might be interested in what are they going to learn in your portion of the program when you're their instructor? What can they expect to learn? What are we going to touch on? And maybe why is that so important to this work?
Well, in the piece that I do, along with the All Ready to Go binder, which is the paperwork piece, along with the 7 languages of sorrow, which is how we communicate our grief in different ways, they'll also get an opportunity to look at their own experience with death, both non-death and death losses, and just check in and see, have you got any grief hanging around you haven't dealt with yet? So we'll take a really good personal inventory around our own relationship with death, our own relationship with grief. And we'll do a little bit of mining here to see, got some holdovers you'd like to get rid of? And the reason that's important, Jameson, is if I've got living in my body unexpressed grief emotionally that I've tucked away, when a client comes in the door, my unexpressed grief is going to get triggered, and I'm not going to be any help to anybody. So a bit like the Hippocratic Oath for doctors, physician, heal thyself. End-of-Life doula, do your personal grief work first, and then step into service. So that's what they can expect from me. And, Jameson, it's very personal. It's very intimate. It's very powerful work. And I'll guarantee we'll have some fun too.
Wow. So fun in the program, talking about grief and loss and our own grief and loss, so we can, from what I'm hearing, show up better for our potential clients in the future, right?
100%. 100%.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So it's a personal development journey that also then therefore allows us to professionally show up well when helping others leading up to their passing, during, and after. Is that right?
100% correct. And, the more deeply we can embrace the teachings as end-of-life doulas, the more credibility we have with our clients. We got to do our own work in this field. And God bless us for doing it that way. And that's part of the walk. And we walk together as a cohort. It's not me, the teacher, and the cohort. We're this beautiful village, and we're doing the work together.
Wow. Okay, very interesting. So those of whom that are wondering, as you often supervise people out in the field working to become death doulas and or have more clients and more work, curiously, what could they see themselves doing as a doula? What could they do? What have you seen graduates do already in the field to really get practical hands-on experience and or paid work? What are your examples in that regard?
Well, I just received a book today from a graduate previously, and it's called Your Digital Undertaker. And so she's a death doula with death doula training, but recognized that we have a digital life too that dies. So she's becoming a master at helping families unwind all that digital stuff that's really so very complicated for us all to get through. Another student in the current cohort that is completing next week she is very sensitive to the surroundings where our loved ones may pass. And so she's a space doula, and she helps families arrange the space, whether it's in a hospital, whether it's in a hospice, or in their own family home, so the one dying feels comfortable and held in this space, which will be the last space they're in. I got a couple of guys who are in the program, and what they're doing as end-of-life doulas is reaching out to other men, because many North American men don't know the first thing about grieving and loss, and we know how to keep the stiff upper lip. We know how to hold our stuff together. So he's going to be a doula specializing in helping men lean into their grief.
Wow.
There's many more stories I could share with you, but those are a few.
Yeah, for the time we have today, that's fantastic. So what you're saying is, a doula can specialize into a niche or preferred area of practice within their own doula practice. If I wanted to call myself Jameson Dean's doula practice for said town or city, to have a domain or .com website, I could have that and offer that and say to people in the community, hey, I offer these following services as a doula. And if you're interested, let me know. I'm following, you can do that from an entrepreneurial standpoint,
Yes.
or you can potentially look at the other opportunities hired under an organization, like
Yes.
a funeral home or an old age home or a
Correct.
hospice or a
Correct.
hospital or something of that nature as well, or instead of, or something like that, right?
Yeah, 100%, Jameson. And nice noticing you just named multiple streams of income. And as a budding entrepreneur in a budding industry, having 3 or 4 or 5 different avenues that you can walk down to earn income is a very clever thing to do. And that's what I support folks doing in the last module, is checking out the different avenues you can make money at. And you don't have to choose all of them, but you don't have to choose just one.
That's right. Yeah, it's a big part of this work is confidently putting yourself out there as, yes, I am a very well-trained doula, or death doula rather, for the industry, and saying as well that you've done the most comprehensive program in Canada,
Yes.
our End-of-Life Doula Certificate Program from Rhodes Wellness College being the most comprehensive and robust program. Other employers, I would imagine, might know about the program and or know that is considerably valuable.
Yep.
And that you would be a great, in a sense, person or asset to their repertoire is what I'm gathering.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll share, maybe not the last thing, is I am a board member of the End-of-Life Doula Association of Canada. And that association is working tirelessly to elevate the job of end-of-life doula and how meaningful and how important it is. And we're working hard to get doulas in under the medical services plan of different provinces. So,
Right. So insurance coverage potentially for death doula services
correct.
from insurance coverage from, their insurance coverage, assuming they're your client and they have coverage that they could receive. So what I'm hearing, you could, charge out your services and their insurance coverage could cover all of or some of that, right?
Yep, correct. And so there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And I'm just very pleased that Rhodes College is championing this program. It's a program that's come at exactly the right time as we face 9.3 million baby boomers heading for the exit door over the next 10 to 15 years. A lot of clients.
Yeah, a lot of potential clients indeed. And the fact that you're a part of the End-of-Life Doula Association of Canada as a board member, you see the interworkings, the statistics, and what's happening out there in the field, the training, the potential lack of training, and
Yes.
how our training could be really valuable and helpful overall for the future of death doulas in general.
Yep.
So thank you for your share and your wisdom and what you do, and honestly how well you do it from a teaching perspective and a one-to-one client perspective.
Thanks, Jameson.
Yeah, my pleasure. So thanks so much. And for anyone listening, have a lovely day. And within this call, you'll hear from a few individuals that may be your instructor. So thanks so much, and be well. Hello and good evening, good afternoon, good morning to anyone listening. today we have a wonderful individual that will be teaching in our End-of-Life Doula Certificate Program here at Rhodes Wellness College. And her wonderful name is Jill. But Jill, could you introduce yourself and let the people know who you are and, why you're here at Rhodes? And then I'll ask you some more important questions soon after.
Hi, Jameson. Thanks for having me. Uh, Thanks for saying that my name is wonderful. Um, so, yes, my name is Jill Cherewyk, and I am currently the manager of coaching education here at Rhodes, and I'm a senior instructor as well. So I wear a few hats here, lovingly. But I'm here because you asked me to come and talk about coaching at the end of life, and grief and loss work is near and dear to my heart. It's part of my practice. It's part of my being. It's who I am. And so I'm happy to contribute with clarity in any way that I can today.
Thank you so much for your loving share, loving name. And I guess how important love is to this work.
Uh, yeah, there's a big component. And, um, I've taught around 40 cohorts now, I think, of students in the life skills coaching program. And so I've listened to hundreds of coaching sessions. And yeah, I've had hundreds of students by now. And I can certainly testify that love is a big part of this work. The way that we embody love, the way that we share it with others, and what love teaches us. Mm-hmm.
I agree. That's a huge part of that and living from the heart. But, with that
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, my big curiosity point is, and those of whom that are listening, why is coaching so integral and or important to end of life work and or grief and
Mm-hmm.
loss work in general, for us and our students to learn?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I was thinking about this. I almost wish I had like hours to talk about this. This could be a whole course in and of itself, and maybe it will be one day. So right now we're within the umbrella of end of life care, and um, yeah, there was a decision to bring coaching into this space because coaching is so client centered. For one, um, coaching really has the client at the very center of the entire process. Um, and coaching also assumes that clients are the expert and that they know what they need and they know what to do. They just need the space to unpack it. And they need some questions and reflections that help them uncover their strengths, find their place of empowerment. And I can think of no better fit for end of life care, whether the client is someone who is at the end of their life or they're a family member supporting someone at the end of their life. There's decisions that need to be made. There is clarity that needs to happen. There potentially are boundaries that need to be set. Communication styles are often very different. And of course, the emotional process um, around all of these plans and doctor's appointments and end of care pieces. Uh, yeah, there's clients who are needing clarity and that emotional support to help them get through. And so a coach, a very, trauma informed, well versed coach will understand how to hold the space without getting over involved in someone's end of life care, but um, being able to collaborate with them so that they can come to the end of this process feeling clear, fulfilled, like they gave themselves a good opportunity to envision the best outcome possible. So, yeah, coaching is a great companion for finding possibilities where we can't see that they exist.
And we wouldn't know that they exist without asking them,
Yeah,
how do you want to pass? What
yes,
what do you want it to be like? What do you want it to feel like,
yeah,
to make it as pleasant as it can be, even with potential pain and hardship
yeah,
happening?
yeah. And so coaching isn't just about being positive, and it's not about coaches giving advice and telling people what to do, although it gets conflated with those kinds of methods. But coaching really is about the ability to listen and empathize and powerfully question, to reflect back, right? And to help people find their vision and find their best case scenario, and or get through a very, very difficult time. And a coach can provide a role play for a client. They can provide a space to process emotions, to test out old limiting beliefs. um, yeah, to have someone come to fully realize themselves. And what better place than at the end of one's journey here. Yeah.
I can only imagine the serious and or significant conversations one might have with a coach near the end of life as they,
Mhm.
depending on your belief, potentially exit their body as a soul.
There's a lot to consider, and I can imagine no other period of life as overwhelming as contemplating the ending and how you want that to look, and again what decisions need to be made and who needs to be communicated with. So a coach can be a great partner, and collaborator for someone to get really honest with themselves, to be really real with themselves about how they want this all to look and feel. um, yeah. So what's been unsaid and what needs to be said before the end of this journey.
Right. And I
Yeah.
imagine
Mhm.
with the program, you'll learn a little bit more about your comfort in having those conversations, say with yourself to begin with, which is one thing, but also
Mhm.
another person with you in front of you, possibly paying you to support them at the time, and also gauging what they're comfortable with and
Mhm.
or open to answering, because they may not be ready. And as a coach, I imagine you have to kind of almost use your intuition to understand, okay, are they ready for a significant probing your curiosity question? Or
Mhm.
maybe will we slowly get there over time, with
Yeah.
many sessions or time bedside or whatever it is, I can
Mhm.
imagine.
Yeah. Coaching is really about helping clients clarify what they need to focus on and what they want, what they're working towards. So, yeah, it really is about helping somebody get to know themselves. Yeah. Sometimes radically, um, and very intimately, and then figuring out how to communicate that to other people.
Right. And you being potentially the helper where, okay, the client passing wants the following,
Mhm.
but how are we going to communicate it to their loved ones?
Yeah. So if loved ones are coming in as the client for end of life care for a coach, then again, we are profoundly listening to what's happening for them in their own experience. What's on the table, yeah. Often people who are losing loved ones um, grapple with spiritual identities. Um, their world is shifting and they're reorganizing what is familiar to them. And yeah, that can become like this very fertile ground to plant a new garden, to plant new seeds, to keep tending to the old ones too. We don't have to let anything go, but we're also growing and refreshing our ideas about who we are and the life that we're living and how we want to move forward without our loved ones here. Yeah, how we'll manage that. So a coach becomes, an ally. Um, yeah, a helper, an ally. Um, and again, this is an opportunity for all clients to be profoundly seen and heard through the coaching process.
Wow, so some integral skills that will be taught to learn how to better create that space of growth, of acceptance,
Mhm.
of understanding, of comfort, of so many things. And essentially, given our quick conversation here, that's why, from what I'm understanding, coaching is so integral to this journey. So you feel prepared, I imagine, as someone working, say, bedside near the last few days of their life, to have those hard conversations, assuming they're able, in some
Mhm.
way, to like talk things out with someone, because yeah, the family members could be emotionally unprepared, or not open, given their sudden grief, anticipatory grief, loss, hardship, emotions at that time, that they may not be able to provide maybe to their loved one. Hence why a doula would be a really
Mhm.
good in-between person to help, right?
Yeah, this is, so important to have someone who's compassionate and very, very present, and who's also, actively curious, rather than judgmental or, coming from our own value system, right? We're really listening for the values and the beliefs, um, and just the important pieces, that are coming from the family, and for the human at the end of their life. So we become a great neutral, yeah, compassionate support system for families and clients.
Incredible stuff, Jill. Thank you so very
Mhm.
much for sharing so honestly and lovingly.
Yeah.
And Wow, I'll leave it at that. But yeah, anyone listening, if you have any questions or curiosities of the program, your advisors, of course, are here, and you can connect with me or anyone else here at Rhodes. We're more than happy to support you. So be well. Hello there, Rebekka. Welcome to Rhodes Wellness Podcast. It's great to have you on today, and I would love for you to, of course, introduce yourself and let people know who you are and maybe the class you're going to be potentially teaching here soon.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jameson. I'm Rebekka Walker, and I'm a somatic therapist, an educator. I'm the director of yoga therapy at Vancouver School of Healing Arts, and I also teach in the End-of-Life Doula program at Rhodes Wellness College. And there, I guide students through a course called Logistics of End-of-Life Care.
Wow, that's incredible stuff. So a wealth of experience and knowledge, and the logistics of end-of-life care. Okay. I imagine that's pretty multifaceted. Could you tell us more about what it means to learn the logistics of end-of-life care and or why that might be important for this work?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, my work as a whole is really about bridging ancient wisdom and modern systems. So, helping people meet death not as just a medical event, but as a sacred threshold. This training in itself is very close to my heart in that I believe that reclaiming death care is kind of reclaiming our humanity. So, the course itself keeps things really anchored and grounded in terms of how we would support families or dying people in preparing for death. So from understanding the natural dying process to the roles and scope and boundaries of the death doula to navigating systems like medical aid in dying or home care options, home funerals. And we also look at practical tools like advanced care planning, legal documentation, how to prepare a home for death, working alongside healthcare professionals. But I mean, also, I think outside of just the practicality of it, I also hold space for students to reflect on what it means to companion or accompany someone through their own presence and through advocacy and deep listening. Yeah.
Wow. Very interesting. As you know, we've spoken to Jill and Jill's approach to coaching and end of life work, along with Stephen's approach and experience. Well, you bring in the logistics, I think, to really tie everything together and make sense of things on where the death doula can see themselves being a part in the client's
Mm-hmm.
journey, within the family dynamic, and within their preferred way to pass, while also you knowing and understanding, okay, there's legal documentation to this, there's other paperwork and or things that we need to sort out on the back end of things, that you may need to be aware of as the doula, to ensure that everything goes really smoothly. Because when I think logistics and dying, I think of so many different moving parts that have to move well to help
Yeah.
things go well so the person can pass more peacefully, even to allow for that to be a better transition. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when we look at the role of an end of life care doula, what we really are is a support person, right? So we can support people through all facets of the dying process. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
it's interesting because there's a bit of an emotional support person role or expectation in sense of the doula, but there's also that kind of analytical, pragmatic side that we need to lean into to know, okay, what else am I expected to do as a doula? Because in the world of death doula work, it's not as normal yet. It's not as understood and assumed that the doula is going to do X, Y, and Z. So when you come in, you're saying, okay, doula, you're expected to do the following in this particular manner to ensure that the client or anyone else involved with the clients or the family or their friends, and ultimately that it goes, well and smoothly, and everything is being done to the degree in which it needs to, is what I'm really, really hearing here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think all of the work is rooted in what we might call client-centered care. So looking at what the wishes are of the client in relationship to their own dying process, what happens leading up to or after, and supporting families through that too. I think in our culture, we tend to sanitize or even outsource or disconnect from the death and dying process. And many people don't know their rights or feel empowered to make their own choices or even know what questions to ask. So my component of the program is helping to educate death doulas in training to be advocates for the person dying. And so the module that I teach itself is like looking at how do we bring death back into the home, back into the hands of families and communities if that's what they chose. How do we reclaim like the sacred and the logistical? Because we're often that bridge between, families and medical systems. And so in the logistics of end of life care, we look at offering knowledge that can help our death doulas in training to walk that edge with kind of confidence and clarity while still holding presence, and being led into what the client needs are.
Wow. Incredibly put, and I can only imagine how valuable that would be in that dying journey or process, whether it's a few days, a few weeks, a few months, or even a few years that you're stepping in. And by the sounds of things, you're kind of day by day ensuring that your expectations the client also understands as well, in terms of what they need, and showing up for their needs, which is great. And that can be maybe agreed upon in advance to understand where you come in, what you do, and when. And client to client, that may be different. So you're going to be juggling a lot of different cases, and a lot of different maybe plans for you to ensure that everything is lined up in a way that makes sense for the client and also makes sense for you. And if anything happens suddenly to change that, of course, you're coming in to allow for that, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, the better educated and the more informed the death doula and the family or dying person are, the more present everyone can be with the process. So the death doulas hold space more powerfully. They offer grounded reassurance, and they can help to guide loved ones and the dying person into whatever their wishes might be, protecting dignity, preserving agency for the dying and for their loved ones, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, it has me think a lot about, you're going to have to, as a death doula, kind of do a little bit of education potentially to the people that you're working with, because they may not know how you have a fit in this and exactly what you can do, and also therefore what you can't do, because some medical things a death doula can't do and may not, and usually isn't trained in, but you do need to understand the things that you can do and or that your client would like. So educating on your client, on what you can do versus also what they would like you to do, I think would be a conversation to have pretty early on. Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. For instance, as a death doula, whenever I sit down with a family or with a person who has booked me or hired me, we talk about, what my scope is, what I can support, where the client might need some support, and we talk about advanced care directives, these types of things. Yeah, and that's what I love as well about teaching at Rhodes is. We're rooted in skills-based learning. So, in the course itself, through a blend of like lecture and case-based discussion, storytelling, role playing. We walk our students through a lot of the how to do that as well. So it's not just an academic course as well, but we also look at providing our students with the skills that they need to hold that space too.
Incredible. Yeah, working in admissions myself, I speak to a lot of aspiring death doulas, and they know they want to do it and become a death doula and hold that space during that time, during their clients' lives, before, during, and or after, but they don't know necessarily how. The practical understanding of how do I do that? And it sounds to me like you're going to be a real key in this curriculum or program to enable students to understand how they do it, what they can do, what they can't do, and how they go about figuring out their place and what they're going to be paid for and where they're going to be and for maybe how long. And that leads me to my next question quickly is, in your part of the program and curriculum, do you talk about payment and how to structure payment or charge clients, or not so much?
That's a little bit later on. So there is a business component to the program. Mine is rooted really in like the logistics of death and dying. So later on in the program, the students will do a more business based in terms of like launching their own business and what to charge. Here we look at like truly, what to expect when a person is dying, how to facilitate conversations about last wishes, about memorials, or about legacy projects, these types of things.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much, Rebekka, for sharing an incredible amount of knowledge and wisdom with us today, and wishing anyone listening a wonderful day and week and month and year moving forward. And maybe you'll have Rebekka in your class in the near future.
Yeah, I would love that. Thanks so much, Jameson.